Listen closely, because this message did not find you by accident. Something around you has been shifting quietly, slowly, right in familiar places where you never thought to look. There is a reason you have felt watched without seeing eyes. A reason your peace feels interrupted for no clear cause. A reason certain smiles now feel heavier than before. Someone very close to you has been carrying a secret intention. Not loud, not obvious, hidden behind routine conversations, shared memories, and everyday trust. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. The most unsettling betrayals never arrive from strangers. They come from voices you recognize. From people who know your habits, your weaknesses, your timing, your silence. You may have noticed small changes already. Sudden coldness where warmth once lived. Unnecessary questions about your plans. Interest in your delays, your absences, your private decisions. At first, it felt like nothing. Then it felt like coincidence. Now it feels like pressure you cannot name. That pressure is not random. There is someone who feels threatened by your existence. Not because you attacked them. Not because you harmed them. But because your presence exposes what they hide. Your growth unsettles them. Your survival reminds them of their own failure. Your future stands in the way of something they want desperately. So they began watching, calculating, waiting. This person knows when you are calm. They know when you are distracted. They know when you trust too easily. And the most chilling truth is this: they believe they are justified. They tell themselves stories to sleep at night. They rewrite your role in their mind. They turn you into an obstacle instead of a human being. You were never meant to know this yet. But timing has shifted. The signs are appearing because the window is narrowing. Not for you, for them. That is why this message feels urgent without being loud. Why your intuition has been whispering instead of screaming. Why something inside you said, "Pay attention." This is not the moment to confront anyone. This is the moment to observe. Notice who reacts strangely when you succeed. Notice who grows silent when you speak of plans. Notice who discourages you subtly, repeatedly, softly. The betrayer does not rush. They blend. They wait for you to lower your guard naturally. But here is what they do not understand. You are not exposed. You are protected. The fact that you are hearing this now means their advantage is fading. What was hidden is beginning to surface. What was planned is being disrupted. In the next part, the pattern becomes clearer. The connection sharpens. And the identity behind this intention begins to narrow itself down. Stay present. Not alert with fear, but steady with clarity. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And the truth, when revealed, changes everything. Now listen even more carefully, because this is where most people miss the truth. The person who wants you gone does not hate you loudly. They do not argue with you openly. They do not attack you in front of others. They protect you in public. They question you in private. They weaken you slowly. This is how the closest betrayals always operate. Think back to moments when you shared good news. Notice who smiled first, but their eyes did not follow. Notice who changed the topic quickly. Notice who reminded you of risks when you spoke of hope. That was not concern. That was calculation. This person feels safer when you doubt yourself. They feel powerful when you delay your progress. They relax when you shrink your plans. They never tell you, "Don't grow." They say, "Take your time." They never say, "Stop." They say, "Maybe later." And every time you listened, they felt closer to winning. Here is the part that will shake you. This betrayer believes you owe them something. Your loyalty. Your silence. Your smallness. They think your life crossed a line it was never meant to cross. They believe your success breaks an invisible agreement you never signed. So they began rewriting history. In their mind, you became selfish, unfair, a threat. And once someone sees you that way, they justify anything. They gather information casually. They ask questions that sound normal. They remember details you forgot you shared. They know when you leave. They know when you return. They know when you are emotionally tired. This is not paranoia. This is pattern. And the most shocking truth is this: you have already felt it. That tight feeling during certain conversations. That urge to stop talking suddenly. That instinct to withhold details for no reason. That was not anxiety. That was intuition. Your awareness activated before your mind caught up. The betrayer is not random. They are not far. They are not new. They are woven into your routine. Someone who has access without effort. Someone whose presence never raised alarms because it never needed to. But something changed recently. They realized you are harder to control now. You question more. You listen less. You move differently. And that scared them. Because when control fades, desperation grows. That is why the tension feels stronger lately. Why interactions feel heavier. Why silence between you feels charged. They are watching to see if you noticed. And here is the turning point. The moment you stop feeding them information, they weaken. The moment you stop explaining yourself, they lose grip. The moment you trust your instincts, their plan cracks. You do not need confrontation. You need clarity. In the next part, the mask slips further. The role they play becomes impossible to ignore. And the name you never suspected begins to surface. Stay steady. You are not late. You are right on time. Now the silence starts speaking. Because once you see the pattern, it begins revealing itself everywhere. In pauses. In tone changes. In moments that feel slightly off but never loud enough to accuse. This is where the truth tightens. The betrayer mirrors you. They learned your language. They copied your reactions. They stayed close enough to feel familiar, not close enough to feel exposed. They laugh when you laugh. They worry when you worry. They agree just enough to remain trusted. But there is one thing they cannot fake. Relief when you fail. Tension when you succeed. Watch carefully. When something doesn't work out for you, they soften. They speak gently. They say the right words. But when something aligns for you, when momentum builds, when doors open, their energy shifts. Not anger. Not sadness. Urgency. They rush you to slow down. They distract you with unnecessary concerns. They remind you of responsibilities that suddenly matter more than your future. This is not support. This is containment. Here is the revelation most people never accept. The betrayer is not driven by cruelty. They are driven by fear. Fear that if you fully step into who you are becoming, their role in your life disappears. Fear that your clarity will expose their dependency. Fear that once you no longer need them, their influence ends. So they cling quietly. They position themselves as essential, as the only one who understands you, as the voice of reason when you feel inspired. And slowly, invisibly, they attempt to sit between you and your next chapter. You may have noticed how they subtly question your confidence. How they bring up your past when you talk about the future. How they remind you of mistakes exactly when you feel ready to move. That timing is not accidental. They know your weak moments because they helped create them. This is the hardest truth to absorb. Some people stay close not to protect you, but to manage you. They do not want you harmed. They want you limited, controlled, predictable. And when limitation no longer works, that is when intentions darken. That is why this message feels heavy now. Because the dynamic has shifted. You are changing faster than they expected. Your awareness is breaking patterns they relied on. Your silence is making them uneasy. They sense distance growing, even if you haven't said a word. And here is what changes everything. The moment you stop reacting, they panic internally. The moment you stop sharing, they feel blind. The moment you move quietly, they lose leverage. They need your openness more than you need their presence. You are not trapped. You are observing. And observation is power. In the next part, the final layer begins to peel away. The relationship category becomes clear, and the identity of the betrayer moves from possibility to recognition. Do not rush this realization. Let it arrive naturally, because once the name forms in your mind, you will understand why it had to stay hidden until now. This is where the truth finally stands in full light, not shouted, not announced, simply undeniable. By now, one name has been quietly forming in your mind. You did not force it. You did not search for it. It arrived on its own. Because the betrayer was never hidden far away. They were hidden behind familiarity. This is someone who knows your routines without asking. Someone who has opinions about your choices before you explain them. Someone whose presence once felt comforting, but now feels heavy. The shock is not who they are. The shock is how long they stayed close. This person benefited from your confusion, from your hesitation, from your tendency to explain yourself instead of protecting yourself. They positioned themselves as necessary, as irreplaceable, as the constant in your life. But constants become cages when growth begins. You started changing quietly, thinking differently, moving with intention instead of permission. And that was the moment everything shifted. They realized you no longer needed approval. You no longer required validation. You no longer depended on their version of reality. So their control weakened. And when control weakens, truth surfaces. You may now recognize how they subtly competed with you, how they redirected conversations back to themselves, how they minimized your experiences while magnifying their own. That was not closeness. That was positioning. Here is the final revelation. The betrayer never wanted your end. They wanted your place, your influence, your future, your space in the world. They wanted you small enough to manage, quiet enough to overshadow, uncertain enough to remain behind them. But you did not stay there. And now, awareness has done what confrontation never could. You see clearly. That clarity changes the dynamic completely. You do not need distance fueled by anger. You need distance built on understanding. You do not need revenge. You need alignment. The moment you stop explaining yourself, they lose relevance. The moment you stop reacting, they lose power. The moment you choose yourself quietly, they fade naturally. You are not alone in this realization. Many discover it too late. You discovered it in time. And that is why this message found you now. Not to frighten you, not to rush you, but to free you from misplaced trust, from emotional interference, from invisible restraint. Carry this awareness forward calmly. Move gently, but deliberately. Let actions replace explanations. Because once you see the betrayer clearly, their influence ends the moment you stop feeding it. And from here, your life no longer moves in circles. It moves forward. Now everything becomes quiet in a different way. Not the silence of confusion, but the silence of knowing. You no longer replay conversations in your mind. You no longer question your instincts. You no longer feel the need to prove what you already understand. Because once truth settles, it brings calm. You may notice how your energy feels lighter already, how decisions feel simpler, how your body relaxes without effort. That is not coincidence. That is alignment returning. The person who once held influence over your emotions no longer does. Not because they disappeared, but because you stepped out of the role they needed you to play. You stopped shrinking. You stopped explaining. You stopped waiting for permission. And something powerful happened. Their presence lost weight. Their words lost impact. Their reactions stopped mattering. This is the moment they sense the shift, even if they never speak of it. They feel distance where control once lived. They feel uncertainty where certainty once existed. And that is where their influence ends. You are no longer available for manipulation disguised as concern. You are no longer reachable through guilt. You are no longer responsive to subtle pressure. You chose clarity over comfort. And clarity always wins. Here is the truth that stays with you after this message ends. You were never weak for trusting. You were never foolish for caring. You were simply evolving. And evolution always reveals who cannot come with you. Some people are only meant for earlier versions of you. They do not survive your growth. They do not adapt to your awareness. And that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is forward motion, peaceful boundaries, quiet confidence. From this point on, your life changes not because you fight harder, but because you choose better. You listen to yourself first. You protect your plans. You move without announcing every step. And the right people will recognize you without needing explanations. Let this be the chapter where you stop questioning what you felt. Let this be the moment you trust your inner signal completely. Because once awareness arrives, nothing hidden can stay hidden for long. And you are no longer walking in the dark. This is where your power becomes undeniable. Not because you confront anyone. Not because you expose anything. But because you move differently now. You begin to notice how silence works in your favor. How calm decisions reshape your path. How distance brings clarity instead of loneliness. You are no longer reacting to energy that once controlled the room. You are setting the tone simply by being present. That is the shift they never prepared for. The person who once depended on your openness now feels unsure. They watch you carefully. They listen harder than they speak. Because they sense it. You are no longer predictable. You choose your words with care. You share less, but mean more. You smile without explaining why. And this unsettles them more than confrontation ever could. Here is the revelation that changes everything. People who rely on influence fear independence more than exposure. They lose power when you stop seeking reassurance. They fade when you stop feeding the connection they controlled. You have already stepped beyond their reach. Your plans no longer require approval. Your future no longer needs validation. Your direction is no longer open for debate. This is the chapter where you reclaim your space fully. You invest your energy where it grows. You trust actions more than promises. You feel grounded instead of guarded. And something unexpected happens. Opportunities begin aligning quietly. Support appears without force. Peace replaces tension without explanation. That is what happens when interference ends. The betrayer may never admit what they intended. They may never acknowledge the shift. They may even pretend nothing changed. But you know. And that knowing becomes your protection. You move forward with clarity instead of caution. With wisdom instead of fear. With confidence that does not need permission. This message was never meant to trap you in suspicion. It was meant to return you to yourself. And now that you stand there again, centered, aware, unshaken, nothing meant to limit you can remain close. From here on, your life unfolds with intention, and no hidden influence has a place beside you anymore. This is the closing shift, the moment everything finally locks into place. You are no longer searching for answers. You are no longer replaying signs. You are no longer trying to decode behavior. Because understanding has settled into certainty. The truth did not arrive as chaos. It arrived as calm. As a quiet knowing that no longer asks questions. You now recognize the difference between closeness and access. Between loyalty and convenience. Between love and control. And that recognition changes how you move forever. You walk without hesitation. You speak without over-explaining. You choose without guilt. The person who once stood too close now feels distant, even in the same room. Their words no longer land the same way. Their reactions no longer shape your decisions. They feel it too. They sense that the version of you they once managed is gone, replaced by someone grounded, someone clear, someone unreachable by old methods. This is not separation through conflict. This is separation through growth. You did not close doors angrily. You simply stopped holding them open. And life responds instantly to that choice. Your intuition sharpens. Your focus deepens. Your peace strengthens. You are no longer available for subtle interference. No longer open to emotional negotiation. No longer vulnerable to hidden agendas. And here is the final truth that stays with you long after this ends. Nothing meant to stop you can survive your awareness. Nothing meant to limit you can follow you forward. Nothing hidden can remain powerful once it is seen. You were not saved by luck. You were not protected by chance. You protected yourself by listening. And from this moment on, your life does not move cautiously. It moves deliberately, with clarity, with confidence, with quiet strength. What once stood behind you has no place ahead of you now. And that is how the story ends. This is the moment after the storm you never saw coming. Everything around you looks the same, but you are not the same. You breathe differently now. You listen more carefully. You trust yourself without asking permission. What once felt confusing now feels obvious. What once felt heavy now feels distant. What once felt threatening now feels powerless. Because clarity has replaced uncertainty. You no longer feel the need to warn anyone. You no longer feel the urge to explain your silence. You no longer feel pulled into dynamics that drain you. You have stepped out of invisible games. The person who once watched you closely no longer understands you. Your calm confuses them. Your focus unsettles them. Your peace removes their access. And that is the final shift. You did not win by reacting. You did not win by exposing. You won by becoming unreachable. Your life now moves in alignment with your inner signal. You notice signs faster. You detach sooner. You protect your future naturally. This is not the end of awareness. This is the beginning of mastery. You will never again ignore subtle discomfort. You will never again confuse familiarity with safety. You will never again silence intuition for comfort. And that changes everything. The chapter you are entering does not need explanations. It needs intention. You walk forward without fear, without hesitation, without looking back, because nothing behind you holds power anymore. And the most powerful part of all? You did not lose anything of value. You gained clarity. You gained strength. You gained yourself. This is where your life finally becomes yours. Now comes the quiet victory no one talks about. Not celebration. Not applause. Just a deep inner stillness that cannot be shaken. You begin to notice how life responds to you differently. Conversations feel lighter. Choices feel cleaner. Paths feel clearer without effort. This is what happens when interference leaves. You are no longer pulled in opposite directions. You are no longer drained by invisible expectations. You are no longer carrying emotional weight that was never yours. The space around you feels open. You move through your days with intention instead of tension. You listen without absorbing. You care without overgiving. And something important becomes obvious. The power was never taken from you. It was handed away in moments of doubt. And now, it has returned. You trust your first instinct again. You pause when something feels off. You walk away without guilt when alignment disappears. This is wisdom earned, not taught. The person who once influenced your energy no longer has access to your inner world. They exist outside your focus now, outside your decisions, outside your future. That is freedom. You no longer replay the past looking for missed signs. You honor yourself for seeing them when it mattered. Because timing is everything. You were not meant to discover this earlier. You were meant to discover it now, when you were strong enough to hold it without fear. And this strength stays with you. It shapes how you choose people. It shapes how you protect your dreams. It shapes how you build your life moving forward. This is not the end of a story. It is the end of confusion. From here on, you walk with clarity that does not fade. With confidence that does not need validation. With peace that does not require explanation. And that peace becomes your new foundation. Everything built on it lasts. This is where everything finally settles into truth. Not a dramatic ending. Not a loud conclusion. But a deep internal shift that stays with you long after this moment. You realize something profound. You are no longer shaped by what almost harmed you. You are shaped by what you understood in time. That awareness becomes permanent. You do not return to old patterns. You do not reopen closed doors. You do not second guess what your intuition already confirmed. Your standards rise quietly. Your boundaries strengthen naturally. Your direction becomes non-negotiable. And life begins to mirror that clarity. People approach you differently now. Opportunities align with less resistance. Your presence carries weight without effort. This is the version of you that was always meant to emerge. The version that does not explain silence. The version that does not justify distance. The version that chooses peace over proof. What once felt like a threat is now only a lesson. What once felt heavy is now wisdom. What once stood close no longer stands relevant. You are no longer accessible to hidden intentions. No longer influenced by emotional fog. No longer delayed by misplaced loyalty. And that is the final transformation. You did not survive by fighting. You evolved by seeing clearly. From here forward, your life unfolds with precision, with intention, with calm authority. You trust yourself completely. You protect your future instinctively. You move without hesitation. And nothing that wished to limit you can follow you where you are going. This is not an ending. This is the moment you fully step into control of your own life. This is the moment you stop carrying what was never yours. You realize you no longer feel tense when certain names come up. You no longer feel pressure to maintain old connections. You no longer feel responsible for keeping peace at your own expense. That weight is gone. What replaces it is something far stronger than relief. It is self-respect. You now recognize how powerful calm can be, how silence can protect more than words, how distance can heal without explanation. You have crossed an invisible line. On one side was confusion, second, guessing, emotional noise. On the other side is clarity, control, and grounded confidence. You are standing on the other side now. The past no longer pulls you backward. It no longer whispers doubts. It no longer asks for your attention. You learned the lesson without losing yourself. You gained wisdom without losing kindness. You protected your future without destroying your heart. That balance is rare, and it becomes your strength moving forward. You choose who gets access to your energy. You choose what deserves your time. You choose peace without apology. This is not isolation. This is alignment. The right connections feel lighter now. The right paths feel clearer. The right decisions feel natural. You do not rush. You do not hesitate. You simply move with certainty. And the most important truth of all settles in quietly. Nothing close to you can harm you anymore because you no longer ignore what you feel. You listened. You understood. You chose yourself. From here on, your life is guided by clarity, protected by awareness, and shaped by your own steady hand. This is not the end of the message. This is the beginning of a life lived on your terms. This is where your story becomes steady, not dramatic, not reactive, unshakable. You notice how nothing outside of you decides your mood anymore, how opinions pass without sticking, how old triggers no longer activate old responses. That is growth you cannot fake. You are no longer living in defense mode. You are no longer scanning rooms for approval. You are no longer adjusting yourself to keep others comfortable. You are simply present. And presence changes everything. You listen with clarity. You speak with intention. You act without hesitation. The version of you that once questioned everything has evolved into someone who trusts quietly and moves confidently. This is not emotional distance. This is emotional intelligence. You now understand that closeness must be earned continuously, not assumed forever. That access is a privilege, not a right. That loyalty to yourself comes before loyalty to familiarity. And with that understanding, your life simplifies. Fewer explanations, cleaner decisions, stronger direction. You are no longer affected by what almost happened. You are empowered by what you learned. That awareness stays with you in every room you enter, in every decision you make, in every connection you choose. Nothing rushed you here. Nothing forced this change. You arrived through awareness. And that makes it permanent. From this point on, your peace is protected naturally. Your future is guarded instinctively. Your path unfolds without interference. You do not look back wondering what if. You look forward knowing what is. This is the version of you that nothing hidden can reach. And this time, you stay exactly where you are meant to be. This is the phase where nothing needs to be proven anymore. You stop checking if others understand you. You stop wondering who agrees. You stop measuring your progress against anyone else. Because your direction is internal now. You wake up with a sense of certainty that did not exist before. Not excitement. Not urgency. Just calm confidence. You no longer rush conversations. You no longer fill silence. You no longer explain decisions that already feel right. That quiet strength becomes visible. People notice it without you saying a word. They feel it in how you respond. They recognize it in how you pause before choosing. This is not distance. This is maturity. You now understand that clarity does not shout. It settles. The past no longer competes with your present. Old dynamics no longer demand attention. What once felt personal now feels irrelevant. You are not avoiding anything. You are simply unavailable for confusion. And that changes the quality of everything around you. You invest energy where it multiplies. You give time where it is respected. You commit only where alignment is mutual. This is how stability is built. Not by force. Not by fear. But by discernment. You have learned to trust what feels steady over what feels intense. You choose consistency over chaos. You choose truth over familiarity. And here is the lasting shift. Nothing close to you controls you anymore because you no longer abandon your inner signal. You stay grounded. You stay aware. You stay centered. From this point forward, your life does not drift. It moves with purpose. And that purpose protects you without effort. This is not a moment. This is your new normal. This is where your life begins to feel intentional instead of reactive. You notice how your days flow with less resistance. How decisions no longer drain you. How clarity stays even when circumstances change. That is not luck. That is self-trust fully activated. You no longer hesitate when something feels wrong. You no longer stay where energy feels heavy. You no longer confuse patience with self-denial. You move with inner permission now. The past version of you needed reassurance. This version does not. You have learned that alignment feels calm, not chaotic. That the right direction feels steady, not urgent. That truth feels quiet, not dramatic. And this understanding protects you better than anything else ever could. You are no longer pulled into explanations. You are no longer distracted by outside opinions. You are no longer influenced by proximity alone. You choose presence over pressure. You choose clarity over comfort. You choose yourself without apology. This is where everything changes permanently. You stop asking why things ended. You start recognizing why they had to. You stop questioning your instincts. You start honoring them instantly. And the more you do, the stronger they become. People who once felt important now feel distant, not because you changed, but because you grew beyond what limited you. You are not cold. You are conscious. You are not distant. You are deliberate. From this point on, your life is not shaped by what surrounds you, but by what aligns with you. And that alignment becomes your silent shield. Nothing forced. Nothing rushed. Nothing hidden. Just clarity that stays. This is where you stand now. Grounded. Aware. Unmovable. And from here, everything you build is real. This is where your confidence becomes silent and solid. Not something you announce. Not something you explain. Something you live. You notice how your reactions have slowed. How nothing pulls you out of center anymore. How your mind stays clear even when situations shift. That is mastery. You no longer rush to fix misunderstandings. You no longer chase reassurance. You no longer feel the need to keep old dynamics alive. Because you understand something deeply now. What is meant for you does not require tension. What is aligned does not drain you. What is real does not hide intentions. You choose clarity without effort. You choose peace without guilt. You choose direction without doubt. The version of you that once tolerated confusion is gone. In its place stands someone steady, someone observant, someone impossible to manipulate. You trust what feels consistent. You step away from what feels forced. You protect your energy naturally. And life responds to that shift instantly. Your path feels cleaner. Your focus feels stronger. Your future feels closer. Nothing around you feels threatening anymore because nothing has control over your inner state. You are not guarded. You are grounded. You are not distant. You are discerning. From here on, your life does not move in reaction to others. It moves in alignment with you. That alignment becomes your foundation. That foundation becomes your strength. That strength carries you forward without resistance. This is not an ending. This is stability. And stability is power that lasts. This is the stage where nothing unsettles you anymore. Not opinions. Not memories. Not unexpected changes. You stand steady because your center is internal now. You notice how your thoughts are calmer. How your reactions are intentional. How your decisions no longer feel heavy. That is clarity fully integrated. You do not replay old moments looking for answers. You do not analyze people who faded away. You do not question why distance happened. You understand it without revisiting it. What once felt confusing now feels complete. What once demanded attention now feels finished. What once felt close now feels concluded. And there is peace in that. You move through situations with awareness instead of emotion. You respond instead of reacting. You choose instead of drifting. This is where strength becomes natural. You no longer explain boundaries. You no longer justify silence. You no longer carry responsibility for others' reactions. Because you know who you are now. You recognize alignment instantly. You sense imbalance immediately. You trust your inner signal without delay. And that trust protects you quietly. Life no longer tests you the same way. Because you no longer ignore what you feel. You stay centered even when things shift. You stay calm even when outcomes change. You stay grounded even when others don't. That is growth no one can take from you. From this point on, your life moves forward with clarity, guided by intention, anchored in self-respect. Nothing pulls you backward anymore. You are fully present. fully aware, fully in control of your direction. And that is where real power lives. This is where your presence becomes enough. You do not need to convince anyone. You do not need to explain your choices. You do not need to defend your peace. Because your energy speaks before words ever could. You walk into situations grounded. You listen without absorbing. You respond without losing yourself. That balance is rare. You are no longer influenced by who stays or who leaves. You are no longer affected by who understands or who doesn't. You are no longer delayed by what others expect. Your direction is clear. You have learned that closeness without alignment is noise. That familiarity without respect is distraction. That access without trust is interference. And you no longer allow interference. Your intuition no longer whispers. It speaks clearly. And you listen immediately. This is not caution. This is wisdom earned through awareness. You notice how life now feels simpler, not smaller, cleaner. Decisions resolve themselves quickly. Situations reveal their truth faster. Your inner world stays calm regardless of outside movement. That is stability no one can disturb. You are not closed. You are selective. You are not distant. You are intentional. From here forward, your life responds to your clarity. Your future aligns with your choices. Your peace remains uninterrupted. Nothing hidden has power over you anymore because nothing bypasses your awareness. You move forward without weight, without doubt, without hesitation. This is not the end of the journey. This is the point where you walk it fully awake.